Ladies and gentlemen, there is a deep longing in every human heart, a longing for joy, for peace, for something greater than ourselves. We search for happiness and success in wealth and relationships, but still something is missing. The world offers fleeting pleasures, yet our souls remain restless. But I tell you today, the answer is not found in the things of this world. True happiness, real, lasting joy comes from a life rooted in prayer. Prayer is not just words we speak into the air. It is a connection, a conversation with the one who created us. When we pray, we invite God into our lives, into our struggles, into our joys. And in His presence, we find peace that no storm can shake and joy that no hardship can steal. Happiness is something every human heart longs for. We chase after it in different ways, believing that success, wealth, or relationships will bring us the joy we seek. People work tirelessly to achieve their dreams, thinking that once they have enough money, fame, or possessions, they will finally be happy. But time and time again, we see that these things do not satisfy the deepest longings of the soul. Even those who have everything the world offers, luxury, power, influence, often find themselves feeling empty, restless, and unfulfilled. This is because true happiness does not come from the things of this world. It comes from a relationship with God. The world tells us that happiness is found in material gain. Advertisements constantly push the idea that a bigger house, a better car, or the latest technology will bring lasting joy. But no matter how much we acquire, there is always a feeling that something is missing. The richest people in the world often confess that their wealth has not given them the peace they had hoped for. They may have comfort, but comfort is not the same as joy. They may have security, but security is not the same as contentment. The human soul was not created to be satisfied with temporary things. We were made for something greater, something eternal. The reason why material things fail to bring lasting happiness is that they do not address the deepest need of the human heart. We were created to be in fellowship with God. There is a longing inside each of us that only He can fill. When we live apart from Him, we try to fill that emptiness with temporary pleasures, but they always leave us wanting more. It is only when we turn to God, seeking Him through prayer and faith, that we find the true joy our hearts desire. He is the source of life, the giver of peace, and the only one who can satisfy the hunger of our souls. A relationship with God transforms everything. When we walk with Him, we find a joy that is not dependent on circumstances. This world is full of trials, disappointments, and hardships. Those who rely on material things for happiness find themselves crushed when difficulties arise. But those who have a deep connection with God find strength even in the darkest moments. His presence brings a peace that the world cannot give and cannot take away. In Him we find a love that is unconditional, a purpose that is eternal, and a joy that is unshakable. When we surrender our hearts to God, we experience a happiness that is rooted in something far greater than anything this world has to offer. It is a happiness that does not fade with time or change with circumstances. It is a joy that remains because it is built on the solid foundation of God's love. The things of this world will pass away, but the joy found in a relationship with God will last forever. Prayer is often misunderstood as a simple act of asking God for things we need or want. Many people approach prayer as a list of requests, bringing their problems before God and expecting Him to grant their desires. While it is true that God invites us to ask Him for help, prayer is much more than a one-sided petition. It is a conversation, a relationship, a way of drawing near to the one who created us. This is a deep and meaningful friendship is built on two-way communication. Our relationship with God grows when we engage in true conversation with Him. When we pray, we are not speaking into the air or following a ritual without meaning. We are coming before a loving Father who listens, cares, and responds. He desires more than just a list of requests. He wants to connect with us on a personal level. Imagine a relationship where one person only talks and never listens. Such a relationship would be shallow and unfulfilling. The same is true with God. If we only come to Him when we need something but never take the time to listen, we miss out on the depth and beauty of true communion with Him. Prayer is an opportunity to pour out our hearts, to share our joys and struggles, our fears and hopes, just as we would with a trusted friend. but it is also a moment to be still and listen. God speaks in many ways through His Word, through the quiet stirrings in our hearts, through circumstances, and even through the wisdom of others. When we take time to listen, we begin to recognize His voice, guiding us, comforting us, and giving us the peace that only He can provide. Many people struggle with prayer because they feel as though God is distant or silent, but He is always near, always listening, always present. Sometimes His answers do not come in the way we expect, but that does not mean He is not speaking. Just as a loving parent does not always give a child everything they ask for, God in His wisdom sometimes answers with "not now," or "I have something better." If we only see prayer as asking and receiving, we may become discouraged when we do not get immediate results. But if we understand prayer as a conversation, we learn to trust that God's responses, whether they come in words, in peace, or in a change of circumstances, are always for our good. The more we pray, the more we grow in our relationship with God. Over time, prayer becomes less about requests and more about closeness. It becomes a source of strength, a place of refuge, a time of worship. When we pray not just to ask but to know Him, we find that our hearts are transformed. We become more aware of His presence, more attuned to His will, and more at peace in His love. Prayer is not just a duty or a habit. It is the very breath of our spiritual lives, the connection that brings us into the fullness of joy in Him. True peace and joy are among the greatest desires of the human heart. People search for them in many ways through success, relationships, material wealth, and personal achievements. Yet even when they attain these things, they often find that something is still missing. The reason is simple. Peace and joy are not found in external circumstances, but in the presence of God. When we invite Him into our daily lives, He fills the emptiness in our hearts with a peace that cannot be shaken and a joy that does not fade. Life is full of uncertainties, challenges, and struggles. No matter how hard we try to control our circumstances, difficulties will always arise. Some people spend their lives trying to eliminate every problem, believing that peace will come when everything is perfect. But perfection is impossible in this world. There will always be trials, unexpected changes, and disappointments. However, when we welcome God into our lives, we discover that peace is not the absence of troubles, but the presence of His strength and guidance. His peace does not depend on circumstances. It comes from knowing that He is in control and that He cares for us. Joy, too, is often misunderstood. Many think that joy comes from temporary pleasures or exciting experiences. But these moments, though enjoyable, do not last. The happiness they bring fades quickly, leaving behind a desire for more. True joy, however, is different. It is not based on feelings or external conditions. It is rooted in a deep relationship with God and the assurance that we are loved, valued, and never alone. When we walk with Him daily, seeking Him in prayer, reading His Word, and trusting in His promises, we experience a joy that remains even in difficult times. Inviting God into our daily lives means acknowledging His presence in everything we do. It means praying not just in moments of crisis, but in every moment, big or small. It means surrendering our worries to Him, trusting that He will provide and guide us. It means living with gratitude, recognizing that every blessing comes from His hand. The more we make Him a part of our daily routine, the more we realize that true peace and joy do not come from what we have, but from who He is. There is a deep transformation that happens when we allow God to be the center of our lives. Fear is replaced with trust, anxiety with calmness, and emptiness with fulfillment. Even in the middle of life's greatest storms, those who walk with God have an unshakable confidence because they know that He is with them. The world may offer temporary happiness, but only God offers a peace that surpasses all understanding and a joy that cannot be taken away. When we invite Him into our daily lives, we find the kind of fulfillment that nothing else in this world can provide. Prayer is often seen as a refuge in times of trouble, a way to seek help when life becomes overwhelming. Many people turn to God when they are struggling, facing hardships, or in need of guidance. While it is true that prayer is a source of comfort and strength during difficult moments, it is not meant to be reserved only for times of crisis. Prayer should be a daily practice, a constant connection with God that shapes our hearts, minds, and lives. When we pray regularly, we cultivate a relationship with God that is not based solely on need, but on love, trust, and devotion. A strong relationship requires consistent communication. Just as friendships grow through regular conversations and interactions, our relationship with God deepens when we spend time with Him daily. If we only spoke to a friend when we needed something, that friendship would lack depth and sincerity. The same is true with God. When we pray daily, we acknowledge that He is not just a helper in times of trouble, but the foundation of our lives. We invite Him into every moment, seeking His presence, not just for what He can give us, but for who He is. Daily prayer transforms the way we see the world. It shifts our focus from worry to trust, from fear to faith. It reminds us that we are never alone, that God walks with us through every joy and every struggle. When prayer becomes a habit, we start to recognize His hand in the small details of our lives. We become more aware of His blessings, more grateful for His provision, and more attuned to His guidance. Prayer is not just about asking, it is about listening, worshiping, and surrendering. Making prayer a daily practice also strengthens us for the challenges ahead. Life is unpredictable and trials can arise at any moment. Those who have developed the habit of daily prayer are better prepared to face difficulties because they have already built a foundation of faith. They do not wait until problems arise to seek God's presence. They walk with Him continually. Just as a soldier does not wait until battle to prepare for war, we should not wait until hardship strikes to strengthen our connection with God. When we pray daily, we are spiritually equipped to handle whatever comes our way. Prayer is also a source of peace and joy. The world is filled with distractions, worries, and pressures that can easily weigh us down. But when we set aside time each day to talk to God, we find a peace that surpasses all understanding. We are reminded that no matter what happens, we are held in His hands. Our burdens become lighter, our hearts become steadier, and our minds become clearer. A life of daily prayer is a life of deeper faith, stronger hope, and greater love. It is an unshakable foundation that allows us to walk in confidence, knowing that we are never alone. When we pray with faith, we open our hearts to the presence of God, and in doing so, we are reminded that we are never alone. Life can often feel overwhelming, and there are moments when we may believe that no one understands our struggles or sees the burdens we carry. But prayer is a direct connection to the one who knows us more deeply than anyone else. When we lift our hearts in faith, we step into His presence and realize that He is always with us, walking beside us in every season of life. Faith-filled prayer is not just speaking words. It is a sincere act of trust. It is believing that even when we cannot see the way forward, God is leading us. It is knowing that even when life is difficult, He is working for our good. Faith reminds us that God is not distant or unaware of our struggles. He is near, listening to every whisper, seeing every tear, and strengthening us when we feel weak. In moments of loneliness, prayer becomes the bridge that connects our hearts to His, reassuring us that we are never truly alone. The presence of God is not something we have to earn. It is something He freely gives. He has promised never to leave us nor forsake us, and through prayer we embrace that promise. When we come before Him with faith, our fears lose their power and our hearts find peace. The world may try to convince us that we must handle everything on our own, but faith tells us otherwise. Faith tells us that God is our refuge, our guide, and our source of strength. No matter how uncertain the road ahead may seem, we can move forward with confidence because we are not walking it alone. There is great comfort in knowing that prayer is not just about seeking answers, but about seeking God Himself. Sometimes our prayers are met with immediate responses, while at other times the answers come in ways we do not expect. But in every situation, when we pray with faith, we are reassured that we are heard. Even in silence, God is present. Even in waiting, He is working. Our faith does not depend on whether we see immediate results. It depends on the unchanging truth that God is with us. Prayer strengthens our relationship with God, allowing us to experience His love and guidance in a personal way. It reminds us that no matter what happens, we are held in His hands. Through faith-filled prayer, we are never alone in our joys or our struggles. We are connected to the one who created us, who loves us beyond measure, and who will never abandon us. This assurance gives us the courage to face each day with hope, knowing that the presence of God is with us always. A life of prayer brings a kind of happiness that is unshakable, a joy that does not depend on circumstances and cannot be taken away by the troubles of this world. Many people spend their lives searching for happiness in material things, achievements, or relationships, only to find that these sources of joy are temporary. The world offers happiness that comes and goes based on changing situations, but true and lasting happiness is found in a deep and consistent relationship with God through prayer. Prayer is not just an act of asking for things, it is a way of drawing closer to the one who created us, who loves us unconditionally, and who knows what is best for us. When we live a life of prayer, we develop an awareness of God's presence, and this brings a peace and joy that nothing in the world can shake. Prayer allows us to experience God's love in a personal way, filling the emptiness that nothing else can satisfy. This connection with God is what gives us true happiness, the kind that remains steady even in difficult times. Life is full of challenges, disappointments, and hardships. Many people believe that happiness is found in a problem-free life, but this is an illusion. No one can escape difficulties, but those who live a life of prayer find strength in God. They do not allow troubles to steal their joy because their happiness is rooted in something deeper than circumstances. Prayer gives us the assurance that we are not alone, that God is with us, guiding us, providing for us, and giving us peace even in the middle of storms. This is the kind of happiness that the world cannot give and cannot take away. Prayer changes our perspective. Instead of being controlled by fear, anxiety, or worry, we learn to trust God. Instead of being shaken by the ups and downs of life, we remain steady because we know that God is in control. This trust produces a deep sense of contentment, knowing that no matter what happens, our lives are in the hands of a loving Father. Even when things do not go as planned, prayer keeps our hearts at peace, reminding us that God's plans are always greater than our own. The joy that comes from a life of prayer is also contagious. When we are filled with the peace and happiness that God gives, it affects the way we treat others. We become more patient, more loving, and more compassionate. This kind of happiness is not selfish or temporary. It is a lasting joy that flows from a heart connected to God. While the world's happiness fades, the joy found in prayer only grows stronger with time. It is a happiness that does not rely on wealth, success, or approval from others. It is a happiness that comes from knowing God, walking with Him daily, and trusting in His unfailing love. In the end, prayer and happiness are deeply connected. True happiness is not found in the temporary things of this world, but in a close and constant relationship with God. Through prayer, we experience His presence, His peace, and His unshakable joy. It is in talking to Him daily, trusting Him fully, and seeking Him in all circumstances that we find a happiness that the world cannot give and cannot take away. No matter what challenges come our way, a life rooted in prayer keeps our hearts steady and our souls satisfied. So let us not see prayer as just a duty or a last resort in times of trouble, but as the very source of lasting joy, guiding us each day toward a life of peace, purpose, and fulfillment.